All right, welcome back, everybody. We're happy to have you back. You know, in the beginning, I talked about where we have been to where we are today. And it's pretty amazing the amount of attention that we're getting now. Certainly we need a lot more attention as hypopara patients, but the attention that we've got in the drug companies, the pharma companies, the medical community has been amazing. So we have somebody new to us coming to speak to you today, and we're very excited. I want to introduce the president, CEO, and co-founder of MBX Biosciences, Mr. Kent Hollick is here to talk to you today about their company. Thank you.
Well, thank you for allowing MBX to participate in this wonderful meeting. It's really a pleasure to be here with several of my colleagues, and we've appreciated the opportunity to have met some of you, and I would just say that I continue to be inspired by your stories, your perseverance and dedication, which we see every day. It's a timely occasion to introduce many of you to MBX, as our lead program in hypoparathyroidism is transitioning from phase 1 to phase 2. So, see this clicker. By way of personal background, as you heard, I am Kent Harlock. I reside in Indianapolis. It is my hometown, but I haven't always lived there. Okay, after high school, I studied and worked in a number of places, including Prague, Hong Kong, London, New York, and Chantilly, which is a small town just several miles from here, coincidentally. And 21 years ago, I returned to Indianapolis to join a life science-focused venture capital fund, Twilight Ventures. And happily, another partner then was my MBX co-founder, Richard DeMarchi. And over the past 2 decades, we have collaborated on 4 successful biopharma startup companies. And it's just been a great opportunity to help patients and work with amazing technologies. I will share more about Richard and his interesting story in just a little while. Okay, but MBX Biosciences is a clinical stage biopharma company headquartered in Carmel, which is a suburb north of Indianapolis, formerly known as Bethlehem, turns out. Now, Carmel had one of the first automated traffic lights in the country back in 1924. And Carmel has certainly grown and changed a lot over the decades. And now Carmel is home to over 140 roundabouts, which is the most of any city in the US, staying at the forefront of traffic flow. It's true. So Carmel is also very well known for its quite successful girls swim team at Carmel High School, which has won 37 consecutive state championships. That is the most of any team in any sport of any high school in the country. And as cool as this fact is, I have to confess that I did not know it till I started preparing for this presentation. Okay, I mentioned my longtime business partner, Richard DeMarchi. And for those of you who are not aware of him, Richard is a leading light in peptide chemistry and drug development. He is a co-inventor on 100 US patents. He's in the National Inventor Hall of Fame. He co-authored over 250 scientific papers, but probably most importantly, Richard played crucial roles in the discovery of Humalog and Forteo, or you may know it as teriparatide. Now, of course, these 2 medicines have helped millions of patients across the globe. And if that's not enough, Richard also invented the first GLP-1 GIP coagonist, which is the mechanism of action in an extremely efficacious treatment for type 2 diabetes and obesity called Mounjaro. Might have heard of it. And I mean, it's just a privilege to work alongside Richard as we bring forward innovative therapeutics in areas of unmet need. So I've shared a little bit about our founders and our hometown, roundabouts, and now I want to share a bit more about our company and really what drives us every day. So MBX Biosciences was founded in 2019. We are a clinical stage biopharma company, and we're focused on developing peptide therapeutics that are transformative and to treat rare endocrine disease. We currently have about 30 people in the company, and well, here's some of them. So these are some of the people I get to work with every day, and as the pictures fill in, as you can see, what really drives us is helping patients. In fact, helping patients is our mission, specifically helping people with endocrine disorders live fuller and healthier lives by bringing to market innovative medicines. So I mentioned that we are exclusively focused in rare endocrine disease. So why is that important? Well, healthy endocrine system is essential to life. And with rare endocrine diseases, this disrupts the body's control of important bodily functions, blood sugar, growth, mineral balance, and bone health. And so, we're focused on taking our innovative technology, our drug development expertise, and helping to make life better for people with endocrine disorders. So we work primarily in small proteins called peptides. You've heard a bit about them over the past couple of days. And whether or not people think about peptides, most of us are very familiar with one key type of protein, hormones. Hormones have crucial physiologic functions, helping us maintain homeostasis or dynamic equilibrium. And at MBX, we are developing peptide-based therapies that are designed to work better, last longer, and have fewer side effects than other medicines. So how do we achieve this goal? Well, we have developed world-class proprietary technology called precision endocrine peptides. And Richard DeMarchi has been optimizing this technology over a decade. And PEPs really seek to overcome the key limitations of native peptide therapeutics, okay, while harnessing peptides' powerful physiologic effects. So native peptide therapeutics have short half-lives, typically requiring frequent injections of supraphysiological or larger than normal dose levels. And the result is large fluctuations in drug concentrations over time, or peak to trough ratio, which adversely impacts patient outcomes. So think of when you have parathyroid hormone at higher than desired levels. Well, you have hypercalcemia often. Conversely, when PTH levels are below the desired range, symptoms associated with hypocalcemia can present. So in contrast, our goal is to achieve consistent drug exposure with infrequent injection. Or said differently, flat pharmacokinetic, or PK, profile, similar to continuous pump infusion, but without the inconvenience of a pump. So at MBX, we have a pipeline of PEPs, and these are in development to treat rare endocrine diseases, including hypoparathyroidism, also post-bariatric hypoglycemia, or PBH. So this is another rare endocrine disease. It's a chronic condition which can develop in patients following bariatric surgery. Our program in that area is in phase 1, in a phase 1/2 study. Okay, but let's talk about our lead investigational drug, MBX 2109. MBX 2109 is the first parathyroid hormone prodrug for HP with weekly administration. So, pretty excited about that. It is designed with our PEP technology to provide sustained PTH activity with a convenient subcutaneous dosing regimen. Now, PTH is an ideal target for our PEP technology because there is a narrow therapeutic range for PTH to maintain healthy calcium levels, as I referenced previously. Now, MBX 2109 is a precision endocrine peptide that is lipidated with 2 fatty acids. And these fatty acids facilitate binding to plasma proteins like albumin, extending time in circulation. Now, as a prodrug, MBX 2109 is engineered to be biologically inactive upon injection. And that's indicated by the red helical peptide on the left side of the cartoon here. Upon or under natural physiologic conditions in circulation, MBX 2109 chemically converts at a precisely controlled rate to active drug, as depicted in green on the right. This molecule binds PTH receptor and increases calcium in the blood. MBX 2109 provides sustained, predictable PTH peptide levels and convenient once-weekly dosing. And I'm excited that we now have demonstrated clinical proof of concept of our PEP approach with MBX 2109. So in fact, we recently presented our positive phase 1 multiple ascending dose results at the ASBMR meeting in Vancouver. As you may know, ASBMR stands for the American Society for Mineral and Bone Research. And the cover slide of our oral presentation is shown on the right side of the slide. And we were just delighted to share with the scientific community that our phase 1 study had achieved all of its primary and secondary objectives. So MBX 2109 is safe and well tolerated with repeat administration. Adverse effects were mainly related to mild redness at the injection site, which was self-limiting, infrequent, and not interfering with dosing. And also, to some extent, or secondarily, expected pharmacology of hypercalcemia asymptomatic at the highest dose levels. So importantly, MBX 2109 does have that flat PK profile which was designed into the molecule with our technology, as I shared in the previous slide. So in other words, similar flat PK profile as continuous pump infusion. Active drug exposures were dose proportional, and steady state was achieved after 3 to 4 weekly injections. Additionally, the time action of MBX 2109 supports weekly administration or weekly dosing frequency. We believe this is a boon for HP patients. Besides providing greater convenience, we also hope for improved clinical outcomes, as has been observed in other peptide drug classes with once-weekly therapeutic options available. So lastly, the pharmacodynamic, or PD, effects of MBX 2109 reflect PTH pharmacology in healthy adult subjects. So as you know, PTH helps keep the right amount of calcium and phosphate in our blood, tissues, and bone. And so what we found with MBX 2109 is, as expected, in these study participants with intact PTH calcium axis, in fact, their endogenous PTH decreased. Additionally, there was a dose-dependent increase in serum calcium. So these safety, PK, and PD results support the advancement of MBX 2109 into a phase 2 study in HP patients. And importantly, they also affirm the intended product profile of weekly administration and flat exposure profile. So the FDA recognizes the needs of HP patients and that HP is a rare disease with limited pharmacotherapies. As such, the FDA has designated MBX 2109 as an orphan drug. Okay, so I am really excited to share that pending an upcoming meeting with the FDA, we will initiate a phase 2 clinical trial called AVAIL. And in the near future, we will be sharing details of the AVAIL trial and participating investigative site information on clinicaltrials.gov. We also intend to keep the HPA community informed about how you can participate. So what are we passionate about at MBX? Okay, I think you know this by now based on this presentation. You could probably get this question right in a pop quiz, but really what I wanted to convey to you all is that what drives us every day, what really gets us motivated and working hard is you and our dedication to serving the hypoparathyroidism community. So with that, it's really a pleasure to invite Danette Astolfi to the podium to join me. Danette is known to some of you as a member of the hypoparathyroidism community. I know her well as our Director of Program Management, and she's agreed to share some of her story with you. Thanks, Danette.
Thanks, Kent. Thank you. Well, the very first thing I'm going to do is turn my picture off because no one needs to see me twice. That's too much, Danette. But thank you. As Ken said, I joined MBX specifically for this program, and the reason I was so excited about this program is because I've been a member of this community for a very long time. I was diagnosed with hypoparathyroidism nearly 20 years ago, and as Patty said at the beginning of this, the world of hypopara looked very, very, very different 20 years ago. I'm not sure how many long-timers we have, but it was really a different world. We didn't have, all of this. And my diagnosis, it really took a long time, and once I was finally diagnosed and found an endocrinologist, it didn't really help that much. 20 years ago, most of the endocrinologists believed that you resolve the low serum calcium and all of your symptoms go away, and that was the treatment plan. You find your dose of calcitriol, and Tums, always Tums. I don't know who Tums paid to get so embedded into our treatment protocol, always Tums. But once you find the right regimen, you take it daily, and then you're good, right? That was the idea. Your serum calcium, you don't have any symptoms, you don't have any side effects, you don't have any long-term complications. And what won't surprise any of you is that that was not my experience. I continued to have symptoms, I continued to have variable calcium, and I went out, and again, 20 years ago, not that much information on the internet, but luckily I found the Hypoparathyroidism Association. And I began to connect with other patients, and I found that my story was very common. A lot of the patients said the same thing. Yes, I still continue to have variable calcium. When my calcium looks normal, I'm still having symptoms. And in a lot of ways, it was validating for me to understand what was happening, but on the other hand, it was very frustrating, right? All of us patients knew something that none of the doctors really seemed to know. And I was fortunate that a patient directed me to Dr. Rubin, who's still here, very many years ago, who spoke this morning, and she introduced me to the first NAT-PARA trial. And when I began on PTH replacement therapy, I found that a lot of my symptoms resolved. And it was interesting because my lab work didn't look that much different from conventional therapy to NAT-PARA, but I felt quite a bit different. And I was wondering, how do we get this to all of the patients? It was really a life-changing experience for me. And I was working in pharma at that time, but I was a chemist, and I was working on a very small piece of manufacturing process development. I didn't know that much about clinical trials. And it was because of the NAT-PARA study I decided that that was going to be my new job, and I was going to figure out how to make it happen. And for the last 12, 13, 14 or so years, I've been working on developing, and working in clinical trials and drug development, specifically for rare diseases and unmet medical needs. It became very clear to me throughout this process that we had a disconnect. Patients were experiencing something. Physicians understood the disease in a different way. Researchers, pharma companies weren't always disconnected. Eventually, we all found FDA, as we talked about yesterday, way over here completely on a different page than a lot of us. And I really wanted to be part of bringing all of that together. Right, good, dads. And that's why when I had the opportunity to join MBX and work on a hypopara drug, I was so excited about it. It really gave me an opportunity to work on my passion project full time. So I know we're early on in the process, as we talked about. We've not gotten to patients yet, but it was really important for me that we start to build relationships with the community, right? I think it's important for us to have that understanding early on and work together, right? We're all on the same side. We're all on the same team. We all want the same goal. And as so many people have said today, a lot of us know an awful lot about hypoparathyroidism, but every time we come to these conferences and every time we talk to another patient or another physician, we learn a little bit more. So while we've made so much progress in the last 20 years, not quite there yet. We've been talking about it over 2 days. We still have some progress to make. There's still room for us to grow. There's still gaps to be filled. And I really want, well, myself to be a part of that. MBX will be a part of that. All of you will be a part of that. And I'd really like us to start building that relationship and listening to you and listening to your stories, understanding the needs as they continue to evolve. And together, I hope that we'll do really great things and further hypoparathyroidism so that in 20 years, the world looks even better for us. So that's really all I have. I will add one more piece, which is that in the back outside, there's a whole lot of MBX merchandise. And if you don't take it, I have to pack it up and send it back. So please take bags and take notebooks and take all of that. But more importantly, throughout the rest of the conference, as we have some time, I'd really love to speak with you. There's some faces here that I've known for some time, a lot of new faces, which is great. But I'd really love to hear your stories and speak a little bit further. So with that, I will stop. As you know, those of you who know me know I could talk, and said that Jeb just did this. So I will zip it now and leave some opportunity for questions as well.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you, Dana. Don't go anywhere. We're going to help you with the questions.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions in the room? Oh, back here.
I think it's quite exciting. You mentioned at the highest doses you didn't see any hypercalcemia in the folks who didn't have hypopara. So do you anticipate? I guess the question gets to what happens when you get hypercalcemia with this drug, how long does it last? Of course, you may not know this, but because you've not tried it much, so I just want to know what you're thinking about that.
Right. As I pointed out, the hypercalcemia, which was on target, occurred at the 2 highest dose levels, and it was asymptomatic. Resolved quickly on its own and did not, interrupt the study. And I think there's a feature of our prodrug, which is different from other prodrug structures, where our active drug, and you can see this in the cartoon. Oh, it's gone. But has the feature of being, extended time action, and there's accumulation over several weeks to steady state. So we kind of talk a little bit about an auto titration, slow, steady build to get to the maximal drug concentration. And so it'll be really interesting to see how this performs in patients. And, it's always hard to translate from healthy subjects to patients, so we don't want to make too many inferences. But this was designed again by one of the architects of Forteo, a very thoughtful person about how to treat this disease, and I think this is a really exciting structure. So stay tuned with Avail. Thanks for the question.
Great, it's so exciting. Can you help me explain to my patients if they wanted to wait for this phase 2 instead of do the AZP trial and why, how I would explain the difference? And
I'm not taking that one.
Well, I think what I'll say is after we meet with FDA and we have a better idea about what the trial design is going to look like, I think that'll help patients make a better informed decision. I think because it's weekly, the trial design may look a little bit differently. Right now, what we're trying to do is understand how to reduce the touch points for the patients and reduce the burden as much as possible. And I think that's going to be important for patients as they're choosing whether or not to join the study, is whether or not they'll be able to. So I don't know that I can answer that question right now, but I'll say as we understand what the design is going to look like after we speak with FDA, we'll certainly be in touch with the community and we'll be able to help patients understand what that would look like and if it's the right choice for them.
And of course, we hope that those who are able can take part and help, create a really interesting treatment option for patients, hopefully.
Okay, there's a couple online questions. One is a PTH prodrug more biologically compatible than a PTH analog?
Okay, so the active drug, I'm not going to ask my friend in the back to put up that cartoon again. You probably can visualize it, but the active drug is a fatty acylated PTH mimetic, which is, I would say, well, it's in vitro equipotent with PTH, PTH 1 to 84, and quite akin to 1 to 34 teriparatide.
Okay.
Quick question about this technology. Has it been used with other peptides? And is there something you learned from that we might help us to know?
Well, I will say that the same technology is being used across the programs. 2109 is our first and lead indication, so it's sort of paving the way, but we are looking at it in a number of different peptides.
So does this mean that MBX acts more like a natural PTH because it responds to normal activity and stress, kind of acting like the pump does, responding to our needs?
I think the analogy to continuous pump infusion relates to the flat PK profile and just having, quite steady drug exposure, not really, speaking to, modulating that per se by any pump.
And someone wants to know, will you be planning trials in Canada as well?
Yes, yes, I'll just give it a blanket yes. Whether it'll be phase 2 or phase 3, we're working out, but we will have global trials.
And there's one more online question. Will you mandate patients being off of PTH for a long period before starting your trial?
That is something that we're discussing, and again, once we speak with FDA, we'll be able to evaluate that a little bit more. But we've definitely heard the importance of that here today from the patients.
Anything else? Go ahead.
Is it possible to think, not now, maybe in future, about developing such peptide molecule, like prohormone also, but taken orally like tablets? I'll take that one. Like we take thyroxine, which is prohormone.
Well, this is a great question because one of the features of our PEP platform that I did not get a chance to cover in my remarks is that it's fully compatible with non-injectable formulations. And while it's early days, that is something that MBX is exploring for life cycle management.
Anybody else? Oh,
Bridget
right
has a
here.
question.
Bridget? Ooh, I'm going to have to get over here.
A couple of quick questions. Is it going to be like a long-lasting, like longer than 8 hours kind of a drug? And I don't know if I heard right, but will it be pill form or an injection form?
Well, it's a subcutaneous injection with weekly administration.
Anybody else in the room? Okay, well, thank you so much. Great presentation.